about the sneakers. And most of the stuff is not ever really about the sneakers or the DSI or any of that stuff. It never is. It's always about, I'm never going to get what I need. So Susan Kachinkas explains that oxytocin is a learned response and a conditioned response. You know, I went and I had an in-home a couple of months ago. And in this in-home, I've been working with this girl for about, a girl and her mom for about 9 months, and they've come a phenomenal, phenomenal way. And she was in a Russian orphanage for about 2 years and has, I would probably compare this little girl to the kids that we've worked with in the group homes. Her behaviors are just really that intense. And so on the Saturday that I was there, we did, I mean, hours and hours and hours of raging and screaming and her picking up pickaxes and knives and, you know, just ongoing. And I was in the house. We were in the room, and we were working on doing some containment because, you know, you're just not going to be safe. Well, that night I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and I could not put my jaw back. She managed, you know, in that I just did not have the amount of stamina to hang in there with this little girl. So she would get her punches in, you know, because she is in a place where her adrenaline is rushing. And so she'd get these adrenaline rushes, and it's just about me standing against the door and blocking with the pillow and staying calm myself and saying, you know, if it doesn't come out of your mouth and you don't tell me what's going on, it's coming out of your hands and your feet. I got to know what's going on. You got to tell me. And so we did this for hours. And so in the process, she broke my pinky. In my jaw, I could not put it, you know, so that my bottom jaw was behind the top of the roof of my mouth. And so my jaw was all swollen up. And so there was a whole series and some really interesting, you know, some really interesting things happened in that. So I said to Mom the next morning, I said, you know, I said, what we're going to need to do, I said, what I need to do is just go down to the hospital, make sure that my jaw isn't fractured and find out what's going on. So Mom comes up to me, as you know, with her hands, and she's going, oh my God, I'm so sorry, are you okay? And I'm thinking, you know, I choose to do this for a living. You know, lady, I'm nobody's victim, you know, is my first thought process. It's like, oh, don't pity me, I'm okay, you know. Let's just go and make sure that, you know, nothing's broken. And so that was the first interesting reaction that I had. Now I'm in the hospital, and in the hospital I'm sitting there and I'm saying to the doctor, okay, so my pinky's fractured. You think my jaw's fractured? You know, you know what I need? I need a painkiller because I just need to numb this on my way home. And then I'm telling my husband about it because they wouldn't give me a painkiller to numb it on the way home, and I was really annoyed and I was pissed. And so now I'm on the plane, and I am a complete adolescent. But let me tell you one other thing too before I get to my plane story, is that I get back to the house. And I sit down, and I'm sitting down outside of the house, and I said to the kiddo, I said, you know, I said, this is not your fault. I said, but what I want you to know, I said, is that my pinky is broken, and I'm okay, and we're okay. And so she goes, well, that's great, because I used my best jiu-jitsu move on you ever, and I was hoping that I was going to break your finger, and I did exactly what I wanted to do. So, now why don't you get back in this house and accept your punishment, she's telling me. And now I'm at the point where I have to take a deep breath. I'm thinking, oh, my gosh. And so I take a couple of deep breaths, and I go, sweetie, I said, do you want to come sit with me? And so she turns around, and she crawls up on my lap in a little ball because she didn't know how to get into that relationship. She didn't understand that. So being able to offer her that piece brought her back into the relationship because it wasn't about my punishment. It's not about I meant to do this. It's not all of that stuff that everyone talks about when we talk about, you know, in reference to these kids having absolutely no conscience. it took, for me and my upbringing, it has taken a lot of work for me to get to that place. And there are people that naturally get it, and that's phenomenal. But for me, it took a lot of work. So I leave there. I'm on the plane. I'm feeling like a regressed adolescent. There's some lady in front of me, and she's putting the seat back, and I'm finding myself kind of jamming my knee into the seat. And as I'm jamming my knee into the seat, she finds, all right, don't put my seat back. And I'm like, oh, good, now everybody's comfortable. And I know I'm acting out. I can't stop myself from acting out. And so I'm sitting on this plane ride, and I'm on my way home, and I'm like, tomorrow I just need to cancel everything. Tomorrow's got to be Helene Day, and that's it. I find myself whirling around that day. The next day I wake up, and it's like, well, maybe I'll just go and take a bath with some Epsom. Well, no, maybe I should answer email. No, Helene, you promised not to do any work. No, maybe I should do this. No, maybe and it was just hours of not being able to figure out where I was at, what was going on, and I got caught up in the trigger, and I could not figure out what was going on. I was breathing, and I was saying, okay, what else in your life does this look like, Helene? I could not get anywhere with it. I went outside, I stomped it out, and I stomped it out, because you remember, energy and motion, emotion is energy and motion. It's got to go somewhere, and I was stuck. So as I went out and I took that walk and I'm stomping, all of a sudden I release it, and I come back and I sit down and I say, okay, what else in my life does this look like? And it all comes flooding back. It's me grabbing Mom and putting my mother up against the wall and saying, you know what, you are not ever going to hit me again. And I did that at 14, and not only did I do that at 14, but at 14, well, I had my share of drugs and alcohol and all that other good stuff. So that is exactly where the just give me the one painkiller so I can numb it on my way home comes from. So in this process, had I had not done the work that I had done over the years and learned to produce my own oxytocin, because I didn't ever have a tolerance level to support somebody in that type of a state and really be able to understand in that moment what all her stress and fear was. And then also having that history, the beautiful thing that came out of that I learned in that, is that if it took that much, and after as 7 years or not, well, I guess about 9 years now of doing this work, if after 9 years of doing this work, I can get stressed and get caught up in that state for a really good 2 days, what does it take for our kids to be able to calm that cortisol rush and to be able to produce that oxytocin to get to that calm state? It takes the constant repetition. It takes the constant repetition. But what that did was really, truly gave me a window for what it really happens and how much we really get caught in that stress state. Instead of now just saying from my head that, if a kid gets stressed out at school for a couple of days, they really probably need about a good 2 days just to relax and be able to get back to the calm state in order to go back and deal with the stress again. So when that oxytocin is present, then we can create connection and we create trust, which then releases more oxytocin. Back in reference to this little girl that I've been working with, is that over the course of the last 9 months, every time I've done, well, in the last home visit anyway, she was playing games with Mom where she was either, the spy that catches the bad guy and Mom is the bad guy, or it's cops and robbers and she's the cop and Mom is the robber. After I left, all of a sudden they were playing with their animals, and it was about me and Mom going to go out and find all the baby animals, because all the baby animals that don't have moms need to have a mom, and they need to feel safe and they need to feel loved too. So she was able to move into that place, which was huge. She was a kid that stayed on a DSI all night long and would not go to school for weeks on end. She'd be missing 3 to 4 days a week, and the only way she would be getting there is if Mom's friend came over and they both lifted her up and made her go to school. And now, every now and again, she needs a day or two off. but for the most part, she's in school all the time. So this kid has made remarkable progress, and that's because, one of the things that came out that weekend was that the whole school year that I wouldn't go to school, there were boys, and they were on the playground, and they were beating me up every day, and nobody did anything about it. And I was so stressed out that I didn't want to go to school. But as parents, we then get stressed out as anything, and it's, well, we got to go to school, and we've got to, you can't stay out of school forever, and then, there's the No Child Left Behind laws and all of that other good stuff. And so we lose that connection. In our stressed out state, we also lose that connection. Bruce Lipton looked at, if you separate cells and you let them be, then what they do is they come back into community, they come back into relationship, because we need each other to survive. I have to make myself the bad one, and my parent is the good one, no matter how bad they are, so that I can come back into relationship, because I need relationship to survive. Well, I guess I got to be ahead of myself before. So when oxytocin is combined with dopamine, the social contact becomes more enjoyable, and it continues, and that's what we experience as love. So all of this to say that traditional fear-based parenting produces more fear, it decreases the oxytocin response, as well as diminishes the experiences necessary to teach the oxytocin response to exist. So if I don't create those more loving moments, I don't create those moments where I'm in a door and I've got a pillow and I'm saying, man, I need to know what's going on with you. You're safe. You're okay. I love you. We're okay. If I'm not producing those kinds of experiences, I cannot learn to produce oxytocin. Questions and thoughts so far? Okay. So remember two things, is that when we are stressed out, it causes confused and distorted thinking, and your short-term memory is suppressed. In that state of stress, I can't think, I can't function. Again, when I've got that love and support, it frees my thinking, I can remember, I can do things like be able to remember everything that I studied when I'm taking an exam. So Susan Kachinka says ways that we can trigger oxytocin is offering a sweet kiss, sharing a warm hug, cuddling, making love, having an orgasm. If you think about the intensity of an orgasm and the way that feels, that is all oxytocin produced. You're driving along in a car and you hear your favorite song and you're like, oh, I love this song, and now you're dancing in your car, that's oxytocin. Sing in a choir, give someone a neck rub, hold a baby, stroke a dog or a cat. It's proven that actually dogs, I don't know about cats, but dogs will produce oxytocin as well. And if you pet the dog for about 5 minutes, that's when the production begins. Perform a generous act, prayer, root for your favorite team. Brian adds in, make eye contact, breathing. I've heard some of the research come out that, and I had wondered about this because my daughter would walk around the house breathing and she'd go, making all of these noises. Actually, when you make that kind of a noise after you breathe, it produces oxytocin. Practice mindfulness, listen without judgment, positive touch, being close to someone, especially with boys, this one, play, wrestle, laugh, dance, teenage boys, build that oxytocin production through wrestling and through playing. Think loving thoughts and smile. As far as the Great Behavior Breakdown program goes, all of the things, all of the tools and techniques that we have built into the program, the feedback loops, the 3-phase intervention, the time in, the containment, the 10-20-10, all of those interventions